Good morning, everyone. That's pretty good. You know, there's this really strange thing that happens every time the governor walks into the room. Everyone gets totally silent. Anyway, welcome to North Central Correctional Facility. Thank you for being here today for the Governor's Reentry Roundtable. We have a great list of, I can't find my words today, great agenda today. So I'm very excited to be here. But first and foremost, I want to thank Warden Johnson, who's sitting over here, for his hospitality. Again, there is food, sausage, eggs, cinnamon rolls, the works over there, so help yourself to the food. Restrooms, again, are in the back, up the stairs. Also, I want to thank Iowa Workforce Development. Director Townsend could not be here today. She's in DC, but we have Ryan West, who's in the back. And I'd like to thank Iowa Workforce Development staff for all that they've done to help these roundtables, make these roundtables happen. And I'd also like to thank the employers, HR staff, recruiters, educators, for being here today because you are a key piece of the puzzle. And I also want to thank the men who joined us here today from North Central Correctional Facility back there. I'd like to thank them for their hard work that they're doing here to build their skills, to improve their lives so they can be successful upon reentry. And I want to say special thanks to Governor Reynolds for championing and creating the pathways of opportunity and for these individuals. So we thank you because we can't do this without you. So thank you. So what we're trying to accomplish today is a few things. We want to improve employment outcomes for returning citizens that are under supervision. We know that 90% of individuals that are incarcerated will return to their communities. We also want to educate business leaders on programs and incentives available to employers who are hiring returning citizens. We also want to improve the understanding of the barriers and impacts of those for returning citizens that directly impacts recidivism. And more importantly, and finally, what we know through research is employment is a pathway to desistance, which means a crime-free life. We have an opportunity to work together, all of us, as a community to provide second chances and make Iowa communities safer. So I thank you all for being here today. And so next, I'd like to introduce Governor Reynolds.
Well, good morning, and thank you, Director Skinner, and I really appreciate your leadership in our efforts to provide second chances for our returning citizens. I also want to just recognize Director Townsend, the two best, we refer to them lovingly as, because Bev and Beth are out there working hard every single day to really make the changes that we believe are possible. I want to also thank Warden Johnson for hosting us today at North Central Correctional Facility. And I want to start by thanking all of you who came here today either to learn about new opportunities or to share how you're already working with the state on some of these innovative reentry programs. I know maybe some of you have never been at a prison before, especially when looking for candidates to fill jobs, and it might be fair to say that being here today may be pushing you a little bit to the edge of your comfort zone. But the motivational speaker, Tony Robbins, has a saying that all growth starts at the end of our comfort zone. And I'm hopeful that what you learn and share here today will not only be helpful in meeting your workforce needs and growing your company, but also will have the ability to change lives for the better. You know, Iowans recognize the power of redemption and second chances, and we've made a lot of progress on criminal justice reform in recent years, and we plan on doing more in this coming legislative session. There are so many reasons why it matters, including story after story of lives that our system just simply failed. And I think we just have a moral responsibility to think differently. Prison should not be a one stop in a circle that leads back to prison. It needs to connect people with opportunities to improve themselves and their skills. And that's really why we're here today. At a time when we have a shortage of skilled workers in all parts of Iowa, this is an amazing opportunity for us to enable returning citizens to get their lives back on track and address the workforce needs at the same time. By and large, those who serve their sentences, they're simply looking for to move on, to get their lives back on track. They want to make up for lost time. They want to get a job. They want to have a career. They want to be able to take care of their family, and they want a better quality of life. And inmates who are serving their sentences, they're hungry for training and work-based learning skills to prepare for their release. So today, you'll learn about some of our apprenticeship programs. I'm proud to say that since 2015, when it was formally registered with the U.S. Department of Labor, our apprenticeship programs have grown to all 9 of the Iowa Department Correctional institutions. We have 26 different apprenticeships. We've enrolled 350 registered apprentices and enabled 200 to earn certification. So the inmates here at Rockwell City also have access, which this is phenomenal, to 6 private employers and 5 public employers that provide work and training opportunities. It includes Anagram, the largest manufacturer of foil balloons, Scranton Manufacturing. Both of them have operations here in the prison, and that gives inmates valuable skills that really can help transfer into careers when they get out of prison. Other employers, such as Graphic Edge and Carroll and Jetco and Humboldt, are employing inmates off-site in the textile and large vehicle manufacturing industries. So all of the Department of Corrections, also the Department of Corrections have worked with Iowa Central Community College to offer second Pell grants to prison inmates here in Rockwell City and also in Fort Dodge. And it is one of the most successful programs in the country, with almost 500 inmates completing classes since 2016. And oh, by the way, they're earning a cumulative GPA of 3.5%. That is incredible. We should give them a round of applause. I just got back from Indiana. I have been very fortunate to be part of the President's Workforce Policy Advisory Committee, and we were actually, the last meeting was in Indianapolis. We were at the women's prison there. They hosted us there, and boy, was I bragging up what Iowa was doing here. This was one of the statistics that I was able to share, and was very proud to be able to do that. Also, qualified inmates can attend classes at Iowa Central's campus to pursue industrial safety certification or education as an industrial machinist 1 or 2. And recently, Iowa Central programs have been expanded, so thank you, President Kinney, for that, through the use of technology to all prisons in Iowa, expanding educational opportunities, including an Associates of Arts degree, and opening up second chance Pell grants to even more inmates, and they're also taking a look at that at the federal level as well. And so these are the kind of programs that create opportunities for people and lead to opportunities when they're not in prison. This year, to the employers out there, I also signed legislation that provides legal protections for employers that hire those individuals with criminal records, and it's designed to open doors for Iowans looking for second chances by protecting job creators that extend a helping hand. So today, we want to share what the state of Iowa and the Department of Corrections and Iowa Workforce Development have been working on. We hope you'll look at our corrections system a little bit differently and see it as a pipeline for talent in meeting your future workforce needs. But we also want to hear from you. So what we can do better, ensure that these reentry and second chance efforts work for you. So together we have a real opportunity to improve the strength of our economy, as well as give people an opportunity to be successful. So again, thank you. This is a great turnout. I appreciate you being here. I look forward to the conversation, to the panels, and most importantly, to your input. So thank you again for being here.
Next, I'd like to transition to the employer panel, and Deputy Director Ryan West will be facilitating that. So please, panelists, please come to the stage. And also, in case you didn't know, we're going to have a basketball tournament afterwards. So start picking your teams when we have a break in between. Yeah, we're going to play 6-on-6, according to her. Yeah, let's bring it back. 6-on-6, everyone. Come on, let's bring it back.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. Can everybody hear me okay? I want to thank the governor as well for coming, the warden, Director Skinner, Director Beth Townsend is my boss who's going to be here today. We're very honored to be able to come up here and talk to this community. First of all, how many employers do we have with us today? If you don't mind me asking. Yes. It's the goal. We want employers to come up and hear from other employers. Maybe I'll get out in front here. Shyness is not something that I'm afraid of, so I hope everybody's okay with that. So the goal with the panel is we have 3 employers up here, and then we have actually a returning citizen, which we didn't do in Mitchellville, but we're excited to do because he's a business owner. So kind of let me go over who's on the panel with us today. So from this way, moving that way, we have Diane Harrison, who's HR and Safety Manager at Fisher Hydraulics. We then have Randy Van Dyke, who is CEO at Iowa Lakes Regional Water. We have Kyle Rode, who's our HR Director at CPM Holdings. And then we have a returning citizen, Blair Griman, who's a business owner and, as I said, returning citizen. So we're very honored to have his perspective. And what we want to do today is kind of go through some questions to have you hear what they're doing, and then we also want to turn it over to the audience for questions for you guys. So let's go ahead and get started. Diane, I'll start with you first, if you're okay. Okay. How did your company get introduced to hiring returning citizens, and how long have you been doing it?
We got introduced by Joel Collins. He had a class over there from Rockwell City, taking the machining classes, and he asked me to come down and speak with them. So I'm like, sure, I'll come talk with them, and so I did, and so actually talking with him, we got, I told all of them, I said, I'll give all of you a job if you want a job. I said, that's how serious I am. I said, Fisher Hydraulics is also offering to pay their deposit for their apartment and help them find that apartment, as I'm working with landlords, and we're paying the utility deposits for them to get them started so they have a place to live.
Yeah.
And so we just started, I just got my first gentleman, he started Tuesday, and I'm so excited about it.
Well, real quick on the congratulations. I think that's a big part that we see the employers who are successful are doing that. And how did was that something that initially you weren't open to doing, or as far as going that extra mile, helping with rent, is that just part of the package that you wanted to roll out with?
I guess we started in the Pocahontas County Economic Development. We started talking about, because Pocahontas County is only 3,500 people, and we don't have a high crime rate. So I don't have availability of people falling back to our county. And we needed people. I mean, I hire people that come right off the street, never even been in a machine shop and have no idea. And they don't always work out. And we just needed something, and we just kind of brainstormed. When Joel asked me to come and speak with them, and we said, why not pay their deposit? They need help to get started. They don't have those funds to get started once they re-enter the community. So, that was the reason, we decided to roll that out. My general manager, who's here with me today, he was more than supportive, saying, yeah, by all means, let's do that for them.
Okay, very cool. Kyle, let's go to you. How did you guys get into it? I know you've been on a lot of these panels before as well. Kind of explain your story, because it's pretty unique in what you're doing up in your area.
Yeah, absolutely. So appreciate the opportunity to be here. For me and for my organization, it simply came down to numbers and available labor. We're in manufacturing, and if you look at the pool of labor and talent, it's smaller than it used to be, right? Which is great news for our economy, but makes it a little bit more challenging for an HR director. So good problem to have, right? But what we really took a look at is if you look at the unemployment rate, it's low, which is good. But we actually took a look at the participation rate, which the BLS statistics are all out there, employers in the room. I would encourage you to take a look in your region at your participation rate, because there were a number of communities that do have higher unemployment demographically, and if you look at things like age, race, gender, there are pockets of people who are unemployed or underemployed. And so for me, the journey started by asking why, and then understanding and realizing that there are barriers in front of some individuals that are really looking for work or looking to be gainfully employed, but might just need a little bit of help.
Yeah.
And so it was more of a holistic strategy to just be more inclusive as an employer. And I sincerely applaud you and your company for thinking outside the box on some of those things. I wish we had done that much. But we started with something as simple as just, hey, first off, let's just get rid of this question on the application that asks if somebody has a previous conviction. And, commonly known as ban the box, but for us it was simply, the noise started to come out, and my lawyer, to her credit, my general counsel, said, let's just get rid of it. Why do we need it? And we were like, oh, okay. Yeah, I guess we don't need it anymore. And we still go through the normal screening processes for individuals. We ask the same types of questions of everybody, and we judge people based upon their skills, their abilities, and their motivation. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things we hear more and more from employers. Basically, when the unemployment rate is this low, employers are the ones that the burden falls on. And we've heard that over the summer. The Des Moines area employers are just, if somebody has a past, they want to bring them in and find out what happened. And I think that's a change from where we were several years ago. So Blair, I want to jump to you real quick then. When you were getting ready to return, did you know that there was employers out there? I know, Brian Pybel up here is a returning reentry advisor we have in this facility. How informed were you that there were employers out there that were open to giving you an opportunity? I know you're a small business owner, but any thoughts on that?
Well, when I left here is where I left from. Brian actually helped me compile a list of potential employers in Fort Dodge because I went to a work release center.
Okay.
And I started walking all over Fort Dodge. Fortunately, it was summertime. And one of the people that we put on the list here is one that actually ended up hiring me
Okay.
at a countertop shop.
Okay, very cool. So you knew some of the employers out there that were available to you based on what you got here. I think that's a key thing too. Employers, if you're not in this area working with Brian, you need to be because we can get you linked up with some really talented people when they're getting out. Okay, so Randy, let's jump over to you then. I'm going to switch it up a little bit because I know you're an advocate for this all over the state as well, not just up in this area, kind of your territory. We've heard from some employers that they tried hiring someone that had a record, and that person ended up reoffending and getting sent back to prison. Now they're more hesitant to hire someone with a record. Have you ever had this experience? Have you ever had experience with this, or do you have any advice for employers who may have this experience and they're going through that right now? It's a long-winded question, I realize.
Sure. Well, Ryan, what I mentioned before in Mitchellville, and the governor and I had an opportunity to chat briefly about it. My wife and I were foster parents. So we got teenagers in our home. So we started off with the idea that second chances was a really good idea. And second chances, it's always, at what point in time do you provide another second chance and second chance? That's a developing issue for us.
Yep.
But we treat each of them as an individual, without a shadow of a doubt. So what we find is that our success rate we've had one individual that left our employment because the U.S. Marshals came and there was some offenses in another state. That individual went back and took care of those in Utah, California, somewhere, and now they're back in the Spencer area again, gainfully employed and doing well. So the fact of the matter is we're in a perfect storm right now with our industry, in the water and wastewater industry, not only in Iowa or Northwest Iowa, but across the nation, aging workforce and low unemployment. So we've got to look at things differently than ever before. So we decided in Spencer, we're going to start this Second Chance Initiative, and we've got all these initiatives that are going on locally anyway. Let's try to tie them together, and let's put a team together to support providing that second chance to be successful. And I'm not sure if the governor stole our idea or we stole the governor's idea, but it's the Spencer Second Chance Initiative.
Yep.
But most importantly, it's not when is it enough. My rough survey in visiting with a half a dozen of the facilities and interviewing a lot of enforceable felons, if it wasn't directly related to drugs and alcohol that brought them to that conviction, something they were abusing it that contributed to that crime. So having known that there's maybe, statistically, I'd like to talk to Beth Squared to see if there's actually a statistic on that, and And what exactly is the relationship? Because coming back out, the second chances thing, and do you give them a second chance? Well, I think it's our responsibility. If we don't do that right, they're going to be left to, when things, trials and tribulations affect them, they're going to spiral back down, and they're going to go back to what's comfortable, and what's comfortable is chaos. And chaos means they're going to, the recidivism rate is not going to go from 38% down. So, but that number is definitely going to go down, because we're all in a place right now with a perfect storm. We've got to look outside the box. We started about 7 years ago with veterans, home base Iowa, and Iowa Lakes Regional Water got one of 5 employer awards in the state of Iowa, just by the Department of Labor. We got the highest one, the platinum one too. We're really proud of that one. So we
get that. Randy won the awards.
Yeah, we get that. We won the award. But the synergy is there. We have the returning citizens that are also veterans.
Yep.
So when we first heard about this, what I was intrigued about it, and that's why I called immediately. I wasn't shy. Kevin and I are never shy. We want to find out information. We go right to the top. So I called Director Scouten and I said, I know this isn't Homeland Security Emergency Management, but I said, Mark, the 3 things that we deal with is floods. We're dealing with droughts and a workforce issue. That's our emergency management right now. So we're all about second chances, and if we're not giving them that second chance, it's not so much taking a look at why that individual failed us.
Right.
It's how we failed that individual.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, Kyle, I'm going to go back to you real quick. So how did you get linked up with a pipeline for returning citizens? Was that you being proactive? Because I think one of the things that employers get hung, it's not that they don't want to, they just don't know who to reach out to, and it's really not that hard. I think most of the prisons, all the prisons, they love giving tours, just putting a quick plug in for them. So how did that come about for you? And then Diane, I'll come to you next.
Yeah, so I actually leveraged Iowa Works to help me make those connections, and just started to foster some really great relationships with parole officers, with some of the returning citizens, and some of the people that were trying to find them gainful employment. I mean, I kind of look at it as in my world, I deal with contingent workers and temp agencies, and everybody's telling me, hey, I've got all these people that want to work, and they're willing to do that for a nominal fee. But I've got people who have a lot of talent and have been training for years and been very motivated to be employed. And Iowa Works connected me with resources that I could leverage free of cost and get great talent. So it was a pretty simple equation. The business case was pretty easy to go to my CFO and say, hey, we should do this. It's going to cost me $0.
Yep.
Right? And oh, by the way, switching gears and starting to talk a little bit about business results. So we started doing some more inclusive practices. We started to do some outreach to some of our underemployed citizens in our community. We saw our applications jump 700%. We did a hiring event on a Thursday, and I went out. What I did is I went out to local churches and local community leaders, and I said, we just want talent. We can train them the skills. We just want talent and motivation. And it's a Thursday event, starts at like 11. I figured, well, we might have 20 or 30 people show up. We had 140 people show up at a hiring event, and it was because the word got out in the community, right? So 700% increase in applications. At my company right now, we've been doing this for about 5 or 6 years since we banned the box and started hiring. Our turnover rate is about half of the average turnover rate of our local manufacturers. And so people, everybody's complaining about hiring. I'm at the point now where I'm more worried about how do I train and upskill the younger generation for some of my workforce that's ready to start to phase out of the workforce.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah,
That's great
it's
stuff.
different.
Yeah, different mindset.
Worry.
And I think everybody out there, just so you know, so Iowa Works is under the Iowa Workforce Development umbrella. Sometimes that gets confusing. So we have 15 Iowa Works centers around the state, And so partnering with them is free. It's not like going to, I hope there's no temp agencies in here, I'm not picking on you. But you get the service through us a little free. And the community, and I'm going to come to Diane here in a second, the community partner thing is a real thing. That's what we're trying to do in the Des Moines area because there's so many of them. But it needs to happen all over the state. When the folks return, a lot of them filter into those community partner groups. So as an employer, if you're not working with them, you really should be, because there's a lot of talent that needs opportunities in those, coming out of those institutions, and that's one of the things we're trying to drive them to employers as well. So great stuff. So Diane, how about you? I seen you shaking your head on the Iowa Works thing. Is that kind of how you got introduced to it too?
Right, the correction facilities reached out to me. I'm not sure if it was through Brian or, because I've been to Rockwell City for a job fair, I've been to Florinda to a job fair, I've been to Mount Pleasant for a job fair, Fort Dodge's job fair, and I just connected with Iowa Workforce, and that's how I've started to get invited to the fairs.
Okay.
And then I have, just word of mouth out there. Those guys know that Diane's gonna hire them in Lorenz, Iowa. They're like calling me or having their girlfriend or their wife calling me and asking like, yeah, and I'm like, yes, I got a job for them, so.
Yeah, I think that's the other part of it, the word of mouth. If the returning citizens having success and that spreads, and I think one of the things when you walk through the prisons, you'll notice, again, there's people in here who have forgotten more about this than me, but a lot of them, you can see the fear in their eyes about how they're gonna get to their job, what they're gonna do, and that's a real thing. So I'm gonna go back to you, Blair. Quick question. Thank you, Diane. When you get out and you get your job, what kind of skills did you have that prepared you to go out and do those things? I know the great Brian Piper, who everybody talks about up this way. How prepared did you feel when you got out? I know it's one thing to get out and actually walk the streets as you said you were. Did you feel confident you could do interviews and you had stuff ready to go on your resume? And can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, I'm probably a little unique from some of the other inmates in that I had worked in a wood shop in Anamosa for almost 30 years, so I was confident in my skills as a woodworker. Mm-hmm. I was less confident that somebody would be willing to hire me after having done 35 years in prison. But certainly I got a certificate while I was here at Rockwell before I left through Brian's office that from the Department of Labor, basically certifying those skills. I took tests and stuff. I already had the work experience. And I could see the guy that hired me in Fort Dodge, he was reticent, when we first talked. I could see that. But that certificate, I think, caused him to take a second look at me. So I think that was very helpful.
That's awesome. So did you feel, so basically that certificate established you as a journeyman woodworker, or what was that?
Yeah, it was a journeyman certificate from the U.S. Department of Labor.
Okay, and that was all learned while you were in the facility?
That's right, yeah, I learned that over, like I say, 30 years of working full-time in a wood shop through the Iowa prison industries.
Okay, and so and Dan Clark's going to talk about Iowa prison industries as we go, and there's a lot of fantastic stuff we're doing in the institutions now that they're doing in the institutions to get folks ready. So I want to stay with you real quick, Blair. So you get the job, and then at what point do you decide you want to go off and become a small business owner? And did that confidence come from what you learned? Where did that come from? How did you push yourself to do that for the inmates that are sitting in the back?
Well, I was on work release in Fort Dodge, and I got to take furloughs at some point back to my hometown, which is some ways away up in north central Iowa, Garner. And during those furloughs, I decided I would really like to go back to my hometown. People were real great to me there while I was on my furloughs and stuff. So I was able to find a job at a cabinet shop up there, and that job allowed me to move when I went on parole back up to my hometown. And while I was working in the cabinet shop, I can see, what I'm paid for my labor, and I get an idea of what he's charging the customers. the margin in between. So that looked pretty good to me, and like I say, I was confident in my skills. So I had enough money to put down a down payment on a shop space and buy some equipment and start moonlighting. And the people in my hometown area have been real good right from the beginning. They gave me a try, and were happy with my work, and that led to more work. So
sure.
That within a year, I had enough work that I could do it full time.
Yeah.
so that's about a year ago is when I started going. I left my other job. I could have gone after 6 months, but he wanted 6 months notice before I left. So I stayed with him another 6 months, and then for a year now, I've been completely self-employed and never wanted for work.
Congratulations. I think that's good job. That's sweet. You guys, sitting in the back, one of the things here is, just the confidence of believing in yourself that you're going to be able to do it is such a key thing. It showed through right there. Okay, let's go back to Randy real quick. So Randy, thank you, Blair. Randy, question for you. So what is it both Diane and Kyle kind of touched on this. What is your policy on job candidates who apply and have a felony conviction in their background? Do you interview them? Do you find out what happened? Do you give them a chance, explain the circumstances? Because that's, I'm sure, a big question that some of our audience members have, or just people in the state in general. What's the process that you go through?
We have developed in our Second Chance Initiative a protocol that we go through that all of our staff has bought into, as well as our Human Resources Department. And that started, of course, with my bosses, who I work for, the 6-member board. We're quasi-governmental, and they bought into it, and we had the attorney. And the protocol the attorney gave us was very broad and open. It wasn't restrictive. We weren't concerned about the box or anything like that. So our discussion about whether or not they have an enforceable felony really isn't part of the initial interview whatsoever. The initial interview is, what skill sets do you have? Why are you looking at us, and why should we look at you? And can you be successful if we hire you? That's the initial process, right out of the bat. After that, then there's a second follow-up interview where the resume and so forth, and we look a little bit closer at how that might work, and then begin the background checks as well. On the third interview, we simply just say, if we are not going to set you up to fail. Our policy is to be very transparent. We're going to be very transparent with you. And if we offer you a position, are you prepared to be very transparent with us? And a lot of times that question is even into the second interview. And that's the same that we do with absolutely anybody, because once we start doing the background check and there's something that come up or something like that, we really don't have to ask questions about that. Usually when we're at the third interview and we say, tell us about yourself, let's be transparent. They'll start telling us everything that they feel that we ought to know. And it's not so much that we need to do a screening process. They're very comfortable in volunteering that. And when they know that we are going to support them and we're going to put the support mechanisms underneath, the bond between the employer and employee starts during the interviewing process. Sure. And we're very clear about it. That's what our intention is to set them up where they have a job that they can see themselves retiring at, with a good retirement program and benefits. This is what we want to do for you. Do you see yourself here, and do you think we can be a good match together? We talk in those terms. The issues that they may have in their past are not showstoppers ever.
Sure. I think that's a good point. I'm going to give real quick too, Dave. Same thing.
We actually don't even do a background check. We just never have, and it's just because I always ask them if, is there anything that I should know about you? And they open up. They're just very, very informative. As they want you to know.
Sure.
And so, I have no qualms about.
What type of work, or what type of facility are you at, and what type of work would a returning citizen do at your indication? Because I want to kind of touch on what you said. This came up in Mitchellville too, which is, when you're getting out and some of the terminology we use as employers, you're hiring for a career, and hiring for a career versus a job are two different things, in my opinion. And I think that's one of the things. I think it builds stability in for anybody, quite honestly. But what type of work do you guys typically hire for in your?
In Fisher Hydraulics, we're a manufacturer of hydraulic cylinders, and so we're looking for machinists mostly, because those are skills that are starting to die off, and we need them. I mean, I don't know if anyone knows what Lorenz is, but Lorenz has 4 manufacturers plus Jack Links. That's 5 employers, major employers, looking for people. And so it is a huge challenge for us, especially, I actually get employees that come from 23 zip codes that work at my facility. And so, I mean, that's a lot of zip codes, and that's a lot of driving for some of those people. So, you know, we hire the machinists because it takes so long for them to become a machinist. You know, there's just a lot of technical skills they have to learn. And the program that Iowa Central is doing with the machining is just outstanding. I mean, the guy that started Tuesday, he is so much farther ahead than somebody I've just taken off the street and hired, never been in a machine shop. I mean, he's already doing things that it takes 2 months for the new person that with no skills and no education or no training. It takes them at least 2 months to get where he was already at day 2. So that in itself I'm just so overwhelmed by how the skills that he has already. And just a little side note, I already offered the guy in the back a job today.
Great, thank you for saying that. Kyle, let's go to you real quick, Kyle. So, I didn't know somebody got a job. It's pretty cool, huh? What do you, Kyle? Let's talk about some innovation. You know, how important is it for an employer to be innovative? You know, we've all talked about from everything from 5 manufacturing plants in one area to the low unemployment, the baby boomers. Every minute, 7 baby boomers are retiring for the next 17 years. That's 10,000 a day. It's just these crazy numbers. What are you doing, you know, you've kind of touched on some of this, but to just flatten it out and really think out of the box to bring on anybody that's qualified to do the job?
Sure. So there's, you know, I mentioned earlier that kind of my perspective here has been to just look at addressing barriers to success for people in the community. And so a lot of the innovations have been centered around those types of things. So to your comments on background checks, yeah, we don't do the background checks either. You know, my CEO, to his credit, basically says, I don't care what their background is. If they've served their debt and they're a good worker, then they'll be successful, right? But to the earlier comment, usually everybody's open and honest. And you know, the question I ask, if it does come up, is simply, okay, what have you done to change so that you don't have the same behaviors cause problems now?
I wonder almost if you put it on a piece of paper, people are more inclined to check off the box versus just asking them. Because what it sounds like to me is when you guys just sit across and ask them, they're going to be more apt and comfortable to tell you versus writing it down on a piece of paper. I think that's a key thing to remember. You don't have to do everything over text. I got to get a plug-in on text, but so you got to. But I think that sounds like it's. And Randy, you're kind of doing the same thing. I think you just ask them what's going on, and you're going to get a better answer.
Well, and I think Randy already mentioned it. You see people as people. Right? They're not a check mark on a box or a red flag on an application now, right? And I think that's intertwined in all of our experiences here. But to go back to your question on innovation,
yeah.
So you know, one of the things we've talked about, the workforce that's getting ready to retire. We've actually implemented a retirement phasing process. So if an employee comes to us and says, "Hey, I think I want to retire," first off we say, "Well, not yet." But instead of saying, I need you to work 40, 50 hours a week for the next 2 years, we have a process we'll go through to try to figure out, okay, how would you like to downshift, whether it's hours, maybe it's start time, and part of the component of that program is you get to be a mentor then. And a component of your job is actually training and educating somebody that we're going to assign to you to learn. And there's some other employers that have done some similar things that I can't claim credit for the idea. But we've implemented a program like that. We've started to initially when I first started, we had a archaic policy that said you have to be able to understand English. We got rid of that. We started to look at translation programs and started to do outreach to some communities that maybe English is not their first, second, third, fourth, fifth language, because we have a lot of that in my area. We looked at transportation as an issue, and we partnered with a local taxi service called The Loop in Waterloo, ran by a gal named Barb Saffold, who's larger than life. And she said, if you work with me to get some of your employees to work, I'm going to make sure they get out of bed in the morning and get to work. And she did. But we basically gave them kind of like a bus pass.
Yep.
And it was just a corporate program, and if somebody requested it, no questions asked, we'd give them a little pass. I think we had a corporate rate of like $30 a week. You know, but for the cost of replacing an employee that had transportation issues, it was well worth it.
Yeah.
So it was just things like that, and, you know, looking at those barriers and just asking a question instead of, well, deal with it, suck it up, figure it out on your own. We said, okay, how can we help?
Sure. Okay, very cool. Let's go down to Blair real quick. So, Blair, what do you think, you know, I realize I maybe getting out a little order with my questions to you, but what do you think the biggest fears for returning citizens are? Because I think it's important for everybody here to kind of change maybe how they're thinking, not only employers, but in corrections, workforce. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, of course, you would rather be known as a tradesman of some sort, or, you know, than an ex-con.
Sure.
You know? So anytime a guy has a chance to kind of center his identity around, you know, what he does for a living, he's gonna be eager to grab onto that, I think. Another thing, it was mentioned about substance abuse, and that is a big issue. For the 2 years I was here, I used to go to AA groups, and even though I've been away from drinking for, you know, since I was a kid. But what I learned there was a lot of young fellows there, and you could see that they were genuinely afraid about getting out, because that substance abuse is almost like a monster waiting to pounce on them. So there definitely a lot of guys need support with that, whether it's AA or NA, church groups, positive social groups, you know. I'm fortunate to have good family and have been taken in my community by some good positive social groups, you know, Bible studies and stuff like that. And I know some guys who've kind of turned their back on that and went back to their old friends, and they haven't fared as well.
Yeah.
So that's a big issue.
Yeah. Okay, very good. So I think what I'll do now is maybe we're gonna flip it a little bit, go out to the audience. Does anybody in the audience have any questions for us? Yeah.
Hi, Mark Davis, Sioux City. I work for a retailer, and I see an obvious correlation, I see an obvious ability between manufacturing or systems because of the kinds of skills that you learn, but we're a retailer. How do I convince my owners to transition the same way?
Hi, Barb. I know
Hi,
Barb.
Kyle.
Good to see you again. So I actually, I think that's a great question. I used to work for a retailer. I spent 13 years in retail before I got into manufacturing. My honest answer is I wasn't able to do it. You know, I was only able to do some of these things in manufacturing. But one of my previous employers had a very, you know, I mentioned they had an English only policy, and they also had a policy, no, don't hire felons, right? And this is a few years ago. They've since modified the policies, but what it took was some of the data, actually taking that data to them and saying, okay, here's my available talent pool, here's who I've got to hire from, and this policy is preventing me from hiring these people, and making kind of that business case. But for me, my last company, in order to get past the English only thing, I mean, I was on a call with Senior Vice President of Risk, a lawyer, my boss's boss's boss, you know, and finally we came to the agreement that, well, we just didn't have a choice. We had to modify policies, but it was hard, and I think harder for big corporations, quite frankly. My opinion.
Those really aren't our issues. It's more about, you know, and I'm here, so you know where I stand, but it's more about the risk.
Yeah.
So
Vicarious liability?
Yes.
It's a big word.
So are you familiar with some of the bonding and the tax credit stuff we have?
So I heard somebody say that, it's like,
Yeah, we're gonna talk about that a little bit later, and that may help you. So we got two really good programs to help with that. I think the retail and restaurant industries, we were just at a meeting yesterday with Jessica Dunker, who's president of the restaurant, and we're really trying to help them as well. So that's a great question, and something we need to go back to our drawing board on, but hang on, because I don't want to steal the thunder of the individual who's gonna talk about that, okay? That's a great question. Do you have any feedback on that one, Randy?
Perhaps. My company is quasi-governmental, so we actually, I'm a public employee, so when I'm hiring enforceable felons, going immediately into serving the public and engaging with the public all the time. So having that idea with my middle management people, how comfortable are we? How can we trust what they're going to do? How will they be recognized by the public that they're going to serve? We talk through that and work through that by our policies and what we're doing and where we're at. The transparency is absolutely important because I need to know that I don't set an individual up to fail. And if they're on a parole and they cannot be exposed to a certain type of the population, I need to know that so that I don't put them in harm's way or they're going to get sent back. Number one. Number two is we cover 10,000 square miles and we cross multi-jurisdictional boundaries. We're in 30 different small towns and in communities, parts of 11 counties and in 2 states. So we're exposed all the time. You know, and I put people, we have our administration people, we have our operations people, and then we have our construction people. And they need to be mobile in all arenas. I've got people with master's degrees in business administration and accounting. They need to be mobile and they need to go into these communities and help these towns out with budgeting, bookkeeping, water and wastewater, billing programs, a myriad of different services that we provide for these communities and these city councils who represent their constituents. And we partner with them, and these employees need to go into those communities and they need to represent a very good representation of the organization and how they're respected and how they're viewed by the very diverse groups of people that they're with. So we really get into the weeds when that employee comes immediately. And we support them and teach them what our expectations are in very, very severe detail. And I share with them where I learned this was when we were exposed to a presentation by the Association of Metropolitan Water Agencies, which represent all the cities and towns that we network with that serve populations of 100,000 and greater across the United States. Heard a presentation from the Chief of Police from San Francisco and the Chief of Police from Atlanta, Georgia, and the Public Works Directors of both of those towns. And they were over the top with their passion for the performance. They'd been doing it less than a decade. And they were just enamored with the way the public is engaged with them. A lot of what I saw in listening to them, and we found it out ourselves, even though we're only been involved with it about a year now, is once I passed through that door and I turned around and looked backwards, it kind of disappeared. It was a phantom situation, that stigma of how would the public accept this or not. Once we passed through that door and we went on down the road and we brought all these support groups in Spencer, and there's about 24, many of the governor's staff are on that group as well. And we have a couple of charts that we do, and I apologize, I didn't take one along, so I had to make one up. Kevin said, well, you should draw that and share that, but it goes to this issue a little bit, and Blair was talking about the support he got out of the social. When we get the staff in here, we have 3 circles. And we are very deliberate about talking to them about the fact that we believe these are 3 families that all need to be supported and they all need to have balance for that individual. It doesn't make any difference whether it's a returning individual or if it's just anybody off the street that comes to work for us. And those 3 circles are the biological family, the employment family, and we put mentors and we provide an opportunity for the veterans to get together. We have an opportunity for different groups to get together, and we support them in different ways within the family. And then the social family. In the community, they need to be involved. If it's church groups, or if it's Kiwanis, or if whatever social activities, veterans, American Legion, VFW, wherever they can find a home, maybe they like to exercise, part of the YMCA. Wherever they need to go, that family needs to be supported as well. They need to learn those social skills and relearn those social skills, because no matter how well these folks do with the Department of Corrections, they're not going to be exposed to that until they get out. And it's our job to make sure that they realize that as an employer, it's very, very important to us that all 3 of those, that there's balance in all 3 of those, and if there's a weakness in one, tell us what that weakness is for you and how can we shore up the other two to make it to go where you need to go? It's a lot more in working with the individuals and then getting them out there, and you find out that the passion and the performance, they'll exceed most of my above average employees immediately. And within just a short period of time, the curve is vertical, and they're growing with the organization. And when you ask around, those are the ones that the enforceable felons, those are the people that they want to have working on their crew. They want to be working with them because they want something and they're going to go after it. You just got to give them a little bit of an insight of what that is, how they measure success. And I think that's the same thing with the community, and by expanding our circle, much like Drew has back in his hometown, it doesn't take long at all, and the people know what's going on. They don't know specifically who those employees are, but Kevin, I don't know that we have gotten any criticism at all. Kevin's part of our team back home, and he rode along down with me, but I don't know that we've gotten any at all. Any pushback from the public at all at this point. Just kudos mostly.
So, one thing, I lied to you. Sorry. I'm just kidding. In the booklet, for this one, we're not going to talk about the federal bonding. And one of the things I'm supposed to be talking about in your booklet, there's 2 sections in there specifically about the tax credit and the bonding. So if you look through there, and there's an individual sitting directly behind your name, Michelle Seitz, and she can help you. We can get you linked up. So we'll take care of that. That's for anybody else in here who's not familiar with the bonding and WOTC. So we had a question in the back. Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Yo, man, I did almost 10 years with you in Hermosa. I witnessed your conduct working in the wood shop because there was times you had to help me out with different projects. As an incarcerated felon who was once incarcerated, returning to society, what was one of your biggest challenges that you faced in society upon reentry? And would you, as an employer now, a small business owner, hire a convicted felon?
Well, one of the biggest challenges for me was driving. But, I've managed not to ding anybody's fender so far. But, well, now my shop, I'm just me. I haven't hired anybody, and you know, there's a lot of considerations there with, do I want to deal with things like OSHA and all that? But right now, I'm happy being one old man in my shop. But if I was going to hire somebody, no, I wouldn't have any qualms about hiring somebody who had done time. But you know, I would have expectations, you know, that they would need to live up to, just, you know, like any employee, I'm sure. But yeah, challenges. You know, not everything's going to go the way you envision it. You got to be willing to put in a lot of work, not just, you know, 40 a week. When I was starting my business, I was working 40 a week at my job, and I was working more than that a week at my business. So you gotta be willing to put in the work to go where you want to go.
Good. Any other questions? Okay. Let's end on one more. How about that? So, why has hiring returning citizens been so beneficial to your company? What has it done that employers need to hear? I mean, you've stated a lot already. You know, a couple words on how it's really helped you. Kyle, you want to go first?
Sure, I already mentioned this, but it's simple business results. We've seen reduction in turnover. We've got great employees, and you know, we already heard this. The one thing I haven't talked about is the time to competency with somebody that comes out that has had some of the training that they do at the correctional facilities and has the motivation and the appreciation to have the opportunity. It's worth so much. So
Okay.
very worth it.
Randy, go ahead.
The benefits that we've seen are, we've talked a lot about the direct ones, and I want to visit just a little bit about the indirect ones. In less than a year, you know, when we got into the veterans program, that's that was an easy jump for us to say we're going to support returning citizens out of the military in the home base Iowa program, and the talent skills and interviewing those people. But we've got about 7 or 8 employees that are in recovery. And many of those either were inpatient or outpatient treatment, where we had already given them second chances, put the time and the effort into it. And I talked to the board of directors, my bosses, and I said, you know, we go out there and we'll buy a truck and we'll outfit it with all the tools, and we'll expect that truck to perform as a service vehicle, and we'll put $50,000 or $60,000 into that piece of asset. What are our human resources? What value is that, the asset? The indirect that we've seen in the last year is finding out, you know, an individual that I hired with 1 year of community college. I sent her back to school after working for me for 20 years, and she graduated from BBU. And I heard the keynote address was given by a very supportive person in the state of Iowa about second chances and the program. What I found out through all of this is the tremendous amount of support. By the way, that was the Governor Reynolds. but in meeting all the staff people, all the directors, whether it's Director Townsend Skinner, or last week we had a Second Chance Initiative group meeting. We do that about once a month. You know, I put out some money for pizzas and we get together. So we invest time in this all the time. The benefit from that is these people that I have that are already in recovery, they are not enforceable felons, but they're having problems with mobility issues and getting their driving license reestablished and so forth. And if they lose that, you know, what do I do with an employee that I have that has to drive? And that entire transportation issue, you know, is problematic for us because covering 10,000 miles. And working on the phone with Director Spiegel, I said to my HR person, I said, well, call this lady that I saw at Lieutenant Governor had her speak in Des Moines. She was fascinating. I don't know who she was, but she was fantastic. And this happened with the lady that's sitting here. She returned my call in less than a day between getting on planes at airports, and that's Director Skinner. Thank you for that. You know, and Melissa, Director Melissa Spiegel said, I'd love to join your group. She did the PowerPoint presentation for our group telephonically. My point is that when there's this much passion for what's going on from the top down all the way through, and whether it's Brian, your staff, or whether it's Shelley or Dane with the apprenticeship program and what's happening out there, and how those apprenticeship programs are expanding right now, what we're finding out is that it's a benefit to the employees that are not necessarily reentering, but we have similar problems that we're all rolling up our sleeves and we're going after directly. So networking locally here to support the individual returning person is important, but as an employer, networking with all of the activities and all of the initiatives that are going on across the state of Iowa and learning something about that, and my team knowing those people and being able to pick up the phone and give them a call and work through that has been an indirect benefit that I'm overwhelmed by that. That was a huge wow for me within the last year. I had absolutely no idea that the state of Iowa was so advanced across the United States, and there was so much support out there for employers. Obviously, you know, they're looking at you guys in the back of the room, they're trying to get you guys, you know, employed before you get out, you know, and the activities are incredible. But the support for us employers, not only with the people that are in the facilities, the reentry, embedded reentry coordinators in all of the facilities, Shelley, or the apprenticeship program through the Iowa Industries Foundation, or now they're talking about the possibility of an idea of where they have transportation, the mobility managers, where people are in the facility and helping you guys before you leave to try to figure out how to navigate your way to get that driver's license reestablished. The type of support from the top down right now, I'm enamored with it. and that the indirect benefit to me as an employer, and what I like to share in my industry with the Iowa Association of Water Agencies, all of us public water and wastewater agencies, is don't shy away from this. For us, there is an investment of time, and there's a lot of investment in time in all of this. But the indirect benefits right now are paying big dividends. Now that the basis is established, where we go in 2020 and beyond, our issue now with low unemployment and aging infrastructure, there's a big light at the end of the tunnel, because we know now how to navigate through that.
Good, thank you. Diane, you want to close it out?
I guess I've been asked to share my story on what happened and to try to get changes made. So I went to Iowa Central, interviewed, had a job fair, talked to the inmates over there that were taking the classes and whatever. And then I came, people asked me to come to a job fair here. And this one individual, Brandon, he came up to me at the job fair and he's like, I'm trying to get paroled to Lorenz. Again, Pocahontas is a very small county. And so I don't have a lot of probably felons come from that county. So he was trying so hard to get to be paroled to my county. So what happened is that I did everything I was supposed to. We got him a place to live, we got him his job, I had everything done. But the parole board said, nope, you have to go back to your place you fell from. And that was so frustrating for me because I did everything I was supposed to do, he did everything he was supposed to do, and it didn't work out. So then, about a month ago, I went back and talked to the next group of guys that were over there training, and so I was talking to Joel, and Jim Kirsten came in, and I told him that I lost Brandon, I didn't get him, because Joel thought I had, and I said, nope, I didn't, he got paroled back. And I understand, and they said it was because he needed family support. I understand that, and, I guess I'm a believer that we don't always have to put that person back in the place they fell from, because why would we put a drunk in a bar? We wouldn't. We would not do that. And sometimes I think that they need something new, and I'm giving them an opportunity to start a new life in a whole new community where no one knows their history. Because, sometimes that's the hard part for them. Once they're getting down there, like, oh, they know I'm a felon, they're talking about me. And, you come into a new community that no one knows anything about you, you have a fresh start, and I just think that's just so overwhelming for them. And I'm giving them that opportunity to do that. Well, Jim talked to Miss Miller, I can't think of her first name, and she got some things rolling. I got Brandon on Tuesday. He started Tuesday at my place. Brandon is so grateful. He is so happy. I even went out and got him a bed, because he didn't have a bed. So I have two kids, and they've moved so many times. I have boxes of pots, pans, plates, everything, and I helped Brandon. And the next guy that I'm offering a job to, he's like, well, I don't have a bed. Will you be able to help me? And I said, yes, I'm going to help you get a bed. I'm going to help you get whatever you need to make you successful. I'm going to do that on a personal level, and then Fisher Hydraulics is going to make sure that you are going to get a career, because we're not going to let you fail. If we put you in a position that it's not working, we're going to find another place for you, another spot. We're not going to lose you. We're not going to let you fail, as long as you're willing to give us 100%, show up for work every day. You're going to succeed. So that and that's my story. So I just wanted to share that, about. They don't always have to go back to the county they fell from. That's the part that I just get so frustrated about. And sorry, I'm getting choked up because I got a lot of passion for this, because I really believe in them. I believe that they're great. They're going to be great employees for me, and I'm so excited to work with them.
Thanks, Diane. Yeah, I think that probably sums it up. Only I can talk in two mics, though. I want to. That concludes the panel. I just want to thank specifically you guys for coming, and then I also want to let's give the panel a big round of applause. Thank you very much. I think the key thing to see here is, as Diane said, is the passion to do more, and once you kind of buy into that, sky's the limit. So thanks again, guys, very much. Appreciate it.
I'm pretty tall, but this seems very tall. I have to say, I don't know what you all think, but I thought that was a pretty powerful panel. And I want to thank Ryan for his great facilitation and for the panelists. It really was an excellent panel. And Blair, where's Blair? Congratulations and good for you. You're a great role model. Nice job. And one other thing before I introduce the next speaker is that, you know, as sitting here as the Director of Corrections and hearing the story how there's some barriers that we create. And it's so great to have the opportunity to hear the employers talk about the certain barriers that have been created by ourselves. And so I was talking to Governor Reynolds is that we're going to address those barriers because those are things that we can easily do and address. So I appreciate you sharing that with us, and we'll take care of that. Last is Randy. Randy, where are you? Okay, you always come up with something new every time. So I love your Venn diagram. I think you have something there in terms of framework, right? You have family, employer, what's the third one? Social. Thank you. When you put that up there, it light bulbs went off. Having all those pieces are integral to people's success. So thank you for thinking that through and being so thoughtful. Next, I would like to invite up Neil Adams from Iowa Central, who's going to talk about the Pell Grant. Neil, welcome to the stage.
Well, good morning, everyone. Sound like Iowa Central got a pretty good rap to begin with, so I'm just going to keep on trying to roll with this. To give you kind of a little bit of a background, Iowa Central has been involved with education, Department of Corrections for many years. A number of different funding streams, directly through the DOC. A number of years ago, there was something called the Incarcerated Individuals Grant Act that Iowa Central was always involved in. And the latest part is Second Chance Pell that I'll be visiting about here shortly. Through the Department of Corrections, Iowa Central provides adult basic education in literacy. We provide the high school equivalency through the HISET. We provide life skills courses through both the Fort Dodge and the Rockwell facilities. We've also done different short-term certification courses, such as the Industrial Machinist program that was discussed with Fisher Hydraulics. We've also offered food safety, serve safe sanitation courses, the OSHA 10, first aid, forklift training, the National Career Readiness Certificate, and then also food preparation type courses to try to provide educational opportunities for incarcerated individuals to be productive citizens upon their release. I do have to premise this. I'm extremely fortunate. I really don't do a whole lot when it comes to this. I kind of work with a lot of great people that provide this. My most positive piece is I have extremely passionate people that work inside of both facilities and also provide education on the Fort Dodge campus. That is one of the biggest keys. You saw from the HR directors up here how passionate they were. On the education side, it comes exactly the same way. They must be open-minded, must provide opportunity, and have a passion for educating and providing opportunities for these individuals. And I feel that all the instructors that have taught over the last 4 or 5 years in this process have all had that same shared goal behind them. Back in 2015-16 academic year, and I couldn't tell you exactly when it was, applications went out from the federal government for a program called Second Chance Pell. Essentially, legislation currently today says that incarcerated individuals are not eligible to receive federal financial aid. What this pilot program did was allow schools to apply for and allow students to receive the federal Pell Grant to help pay for college courses inside of incarcerated individuals or inside of correctional facilities. At that time, Iowa Central met with the folks from both Fort Dodge and the North Central Correctional Facilities, and we put an application in to provide those types of services. Around about May of 2016, Iowa Central was one of 69 institutions that were approved to offer these types of grants, and about 3 months later, we started offering our first coursework in both facilities. It was an extremely quick turnaround, but once again, with the passionate staff that we had and the relationship that we already had built with both facilities and the Department of Corrections, were able to go ahead and start those programs. What this allowed them to do, once again, the criteria remained exactly the same as a regular student on the outside. It still had to meet financial means. They still had to have selective service taken care of. If they're under the age of 24, they still needed parental signatures. So there are a number of barriers when it came to students applying for these financial aid packages, and they were only able to receive the Pell Grant. There was no other grants, loans, or funds available to these students, nor were they allowed to walk away with anything or receive any kind of financial aid refund check if their cost of attendance to college was underneath their allotted allocation. We're currently in the 4th year right now, and as Governor Reynolds mentioned, over 500 individuals have received some sort of training or college diploma, certificate, or associate's degree during this time, which is very impressive for a couple of small facilities in the middle of Iowa. When we sat down to figure out what we were going to do, we met with the staff from both facilities, and as you can imagine, prisons are not built specifically for education, right? This is probably the biggest area, open space that's available in both places, which is a basketball gym. In Fort Dodge, we have a welding shop. It has 5 welding booths. Right? These guys are on top of each other, welding all day long. We have 40 guys in that program over there welding in 5 welding booths. So it was almost trying to fit a square peg into a round hole, the MacGyver effect, take a rubber band, a paper clip, and create an educational program. But we're able to do that. So we have a welding diploma, the full 1-year program, just like we have on our main campus in Fort Dodge. That's offered through the Fort Dodge Correctional Facility. We've offered the supply chain management diploma, which is logistics transportation management. We've utilized the ICN system that existed in both facilities, and we actually broadcast the class so that both facilities have access to the same curriculum while also keeping our costs down. So if only 2 or 3 students wanted it at one place, that was okay. They still had access. We didn't need that secondary instructor. We offered a carpentry diploma in Fort Dodge. They build tiny homes for the Department of Natural Resources in Fort Dodge. They've got an ATV park that they set up for camping. So they've built 4 different tiny homes that essentially that department is paying for, buying it from the prison essentially, and we're placing it out into the carpentry area. In the past, we've offered baking and pastry arts. Obviously both facilities have some sort of a mess hall, a cafeteria. So we work with those kitchen staff to find time where those inmates can go in and actually participate in learning the art and craft behind baking and pastry. And then the industrial machinist program, which runs out of here in the North Central Correctional Facility. We've partnered with Midas Transit that actually comes and picks up the 15 inmates 3 nights a week, and they travel to Fort Dodge on a bus, and they spend time from 4:30 to 9:30 p.m. and actually use the facilities on the Fort Dodge campus. Obviously, those individuals have to meet the certain privilege level, 405, and Warden Johnson has been gracious enough to send a correctional officer over there, Officer Glover. That's one of our biggest components as well. He loves it. I don't know if it's because he gets off campus or he actually enjoys education. He's there every day, that's for sure. But those guys, like I said, they're the ones that are getting out. They're going to be productive. They're learning the skills. By no means are they getting the 2-year program that some of our on-student campuses are getting, but they're definitely getting the skills. In that program, we've also developed what we call a module competency-based program, where students take modules progressively throughout the semester. We've learned from North Central, which is more of a release institution, that the average time stay here doesn't quite match up with the traditional college schedule of fall, spring, and summer. When you're dealing with the second chance Pell, students have to be full-time students, and they need to be there the entire semester. And actually today's the last day of our semester, so if someone got released 2 weeks ago, they would not have completed the courses. So with the module-based and the competency-based, we don't care how long it takes that student to learn the material, they need to show proficiency. And as long as they can do it, we don't care where they learned it, just show us and we'll credential them. So that's one of the items we've done there. And then Joel Collins, the instructor that was mentioned earlier, he's also gone ahead and put all the theory lecture online. So the students, when they come and leave the facility here and actually go to Fort Dodge, all they're doing is using the shop. They're on the equipment and utilizing their time the best way we can. When they come back to Rockwell City, then they're completing the theory and the lecture online through discussion topics, and so forth through that program as well. So the big piece that we want to share here is it's the same curriculum, academic rigor, same equipment, same courses, same outcomes, and same assessments as our traditional students on campus are. We're offering them face-to-face at both facilities, as well as utilizing the Fort Dodge campus. One of the exciting pieces that we've added in the last 12 months is we now are currently offering an Associate of Arts degree online to 6 different correctional facilities in the state of Iowa. Since we're the only community college in the state that was accepted into Check and Chance Pell, we could only serve originally 2 facilities. And we did concentrate on the career and technical education off the bat, and that was our main goal. But throughout the process, the Department of Corrections really felt that there was that opportunity for students who really wanted to pursue that 4-year degree option, and the Associate of Arts is the way that community colleges can start that process. It's a fully online program. Students are full-time students all 3 semesters, that being fall, spring, and summer, and a student can approximately complete the degree in 4 semesters. So if a student had started this August, the potential for them to graduate next December would be there. So in approximately 16 months, a student can complete a 2-year degree, which is a lot quicker than what our traditional students on campus that don't go to school traditionally in the summer. There is placement testing that's required, just like our traditional students for our math and English blocks. They must get certain scores on placement tests to get to college level. And now we offer those developmental education courses online for those students to build up their academic ability to be prepared for those courses. It is a cohort-based model, and what that means is that students from all 6 different facilities have the potential to be in the same course at the same time. We do this so that we have an ability to have 6 different start times every semester. Once again, trying to find a way for the educational world to fit into the correctional world has been a difficult one, and one that we've learned a lot about over the times. What we did 4 years ago is not what we're doing today. I wouldn't even say it's close to what we're doing today. But we've learned and adjusted along the path. Our courses are either 7 or 14 weeks in length, so students will take 5 courses a semester. Normally they'll take 2 the first 7 weeks of a semester, another 2 the second 7 weeks, and then we run one concurrently over the entire breadth of the semester. Those are traditionally our harder classes, our mathematics, and biology science type courses. So students have a longer time and ability to be able to learn and gain that material. We started these 2 programs, like I said, here in Fort Dodge and Rockwell City. Now that we're delivering to a total of 6 facilities, we have Clarinda, Mitchellville, IMCC, and Newton all on board. So we have the women's facility taken care of as well. Iowa Central has provided physical computer labs, and when I say that, I mean the actual building, but the actual technology, the hardware. When an institution wanted that, we've taken those computers out. And we've also provided what is called a Microsoft Surface Go, which is a small laptop device for all full-time students. This year at Iowa Central, we made a change. We went to what we call the bundle, which is a all-inclusive tuition model, which also allowed all full-time students at Iowa Central to receive a free laptop. And since these students, in all theory, are full-time Iowa Central students, they got access to the same materials as are on campus. As you can imagine, there was many challenges when you're talking about an online program. I remember going to our Dean of Distance Learning, TJ Martin, and said, "Hey, what do you think about offering online classes in the prison?" And he's like, "You're crazy, man." Yeah. But there's a lot of opportunity out there too, and he liked that opportunity. So, and we worked directly with the Department of Corrections IT staff. I saw Dave Dawson in the room earlier here in Rockwell City. Cody over in Fort Dodge, and then Jason down at the central office. The way this works essentially is you've all been to a high school before, right? And tried to get on Facebook and the wireless didn't let you get there because that website's being blacklisted. Everything's blacklisted inside of this program. We whitelist websites. Things like Canvas, which is our learning management system that the Iowa Central online courses use. The Iowa Central website, financial aid websites, some basic research type of opportunities, which is called Gale. Used to be called EBSCOhost for those that went to school back when I did. Those are the types of websites, educational based, that we open up to these students in these facilities. to be able to access the coursework that they need. When I say it's a cohort-based model, it is a prescribed grouping of classes. Students don't get to choose 3 of 7 humanities courses. We have prescribed which courses the students will actually take to be able to gain their area of study. The reason we do this is actually twofold. First of all, we have to define and find the right courses that we should offer inside the facilities to make sure that there is no content or graphic nature behind it that could be found offensive or doesn't fit with DOC policy, obviously. And the second piece is that we need to make sure that we have sustainability built behind this program so we can continue to offer these opportunities to students throughout the future. Some of the accomplishments that we have other than the actual student population, one thing we did not realize when we got into this is that through our accrediting body, the Higher Learning Commission, they consider now Fort Dodge and Rockwell City both satellite sites of Iowa Central's campuses. By that, we actually had to get the facilities accredited for educational purposes. Before that, we could only offer up to 50% of a degree in each facility. So now we've got both facilities approved, so we have full degree granting status, and that's where the diplomas and the certificates and so forth come in. And we've been graduating our career and tech education programs since the summer of 18, and this past summer we had our first Associate of Arts graduate in the program as well. And we have quite a few, actually tomorrow we have a graduation ceremony in this same space for students through this facility. A couple of areas that we're lacking and we need to improve upon is our transition process and assistance for these students once they've completed. I've been working closely with some different groups on that. And then we're also working with the University of Iowa on a partnership for a student to be able to go and acquire a baccalaureate degree once they've completed the Associate of Arts degree as well. So that in a nutshell is what Iowa Central is doing to help provide some educational opportunities for the students incarcerated inside the Department of Corrections. Started very small, and now we've built to be 6 out of the 9 facilities in the state have the opportunity to acquire some sort of an educational degree with those institutions. The federal government is looking very closely right now. They've actually opened up a second offering of applications for institutions of higher ed to try to acquire the opportunity to do Second Chance Pell, which is good and great. Couldn't imagine anything better other than the fact that Iowa Central may not get as many students anymore. But the opportunities for funding to be able to pay for the education, which has obviously been a very tough struggle over the last few years, will hopefully be met through those opportunities. So I appreciate the time to present. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil. And I want to say on behalf of Iowa Department of Corrections, we really appreciate the partnership with Iowa Central. The good news is some of the things that Neil was talking about in terms of off-ramping. We know the average length of stay across the 9 prisons is 20.2 months. So some people aren't going to be able to finish their degree in that amount of time. So part of the criminal justice reform group that the governor has, we made a recommendation on how to be more strategic about off-ramping. So that's one thing we'll be addressing later on. And as well as we also have an Ascendium grant that we received that really is basically helping build an infrastructure to have post-secondary education in all of our prisons, to make sure we have the technology, the security, the staffing, the computers, and things like that. So we'll be more strategic as we move forward so we can scale up over time, because we do really know how important this really is. So with that said, it's my pleasure to introduce the famous Brian Peibel, our workforce advisor here. So come on up, Brian. He's going to talk about the apprenticeship program. We truly are famous up here, you know that, right?
I'm going to call dibs right now. I want Ryan Weston, the governor, on my basketball team. I dare you to try to dunk on either one of them. Well, good morning. So a few weeks ago, the management team had come into my office and you'll get to see a little bit later, came into my office and they said, Brian, we've got a special guest coming on Thursday, December 12th, coming here to the facility on your birthday. So imagine my surprise when not only the governor is here, but all of you are here to celebrate my big day. And this isn't even the banner year, so I'm looking forward to next year. And I would just like our management team to know the bar has been set from here on out. So thanks again for coming. But I guess more seriously, again, thank you for coming. North Central Correctional Facility, the staff here, we've got a great tour scheduled for each of you to go on here in a little bit. And for anybody that has never been into a facility before, this is a huge operation. You know, I lived here in Rockwell City for many years before I started employment here. And it's just amazing to see how things flow and how everything operates. From these incarcerated men getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning to make breakfast, lunch, and supper, to feed 500 people at every session. Now tonight I'm gonna go home and I'll make dinner for 4 people and I'll be exhausted after that. So as you can imagine, it's quite the operation. We've got people on staff, on call 24 hours a day to repair any of our furnaces, our boiler system, our air conditioning units. And these are incarcerated men that are learning these skills every single day. So we've got a fully staffed plumbing unit, electrical unit, we've got HVAC techs. Anything that would go wrong with the showers, sinks, toilets, pipes are getting all troubleshooted and repaired by our incarcerated men. Now here in a little bit, you're gonna be taking a tour out to IPI, or Iowa Prison Industries. This is probably my favorite spot to go out to, well, outside of my office, but it's my favorite place to go to. You're gonna be guys working on different projects. They could be out there sandblasting, they could be fabricating parts, they could be powder coating, and they're welding. And if you like the smell of industrial, you're gonna get that today. It's just fun to see that operation. But even beyond that, these men are using really complex computer programs like AutoCAD and SolidWorks and other computer programs. They're learning all these technical skills and reading these blueprints and understanding how these projects go from beginning to end. So that's really fun to see. But in addition to IPI, we've got a fully staffed computer shop, as Blair had mentioned, where he was working here before. So all of the furniture and shelving and things are produced right here. We've got a fully staffed and operational upholstery shop, which takes care of the furniture and mattresses, anything that we need to upholster. We've got maintenance teams, landscaping teams, painters. Everything that you would need, we've got it running fully right here inside the fence. So it's really pretty cool to see. And all of this is leading me into talking about our apprenticeship programs. I know apprenticeships is the big thing, and I'm the apprenticeship coordinator here in Rockwell City. And if you look at page 17 of your books that you've got today, it'll give you a listing of all 26 of our occupations that we've got currently in various apprenticeship programs. Now, across the state, in all 9 of our prisons, we have about 350 men and women that are in an apprenticeship. Here in Rockwell City, we range about 35 to 40 at any given time. But I kind of wanted to talk about the process so you can get an idea. So if someone were to walk into my office today and say, Brian, I want to be in an apprenticeship, we've got some strict requirements. Not everybody's going to qualify for this, so you can know that these are pretty high. Number one or foremost, you've got to have that high school diploma or an equivalent. If you don't have the high set, you don't have the GED, you don't have a high school diploma, we're going to refer you right to the education office because that's the most important piece. You've got to have that. And that's a Department of Labor rule. That's not something that we've just made up here. It's an absolute requirement. Now the second requirement we've got is I need you to make a commitment to me. I need you to make a commitment to at least go through 6 months of our apprenticeship program. Why 6 months? The shortest program I even have takes 1 full year, 2,000 on-the-job training hours. But in at least those 6 months, I can get you through the testing portion of your apprenticeship. You may not get all of your on-the-job training hours, but I can get you through that testing part. So then if you do get a release, I can get them hooked up with employers such as yourselves, and we can continue those on-the-job training hours after they are released. But I can't be sending books out across the street, so I've got to get that testing portion done. Now, again, these programs range from 2,000 on-the-job training hours to 8,000 on-the-job training hours. So you could have a 1-year program and 4 years, and if you're not working a full 8-hour day, it could last into 5 years or even longer than that. And then my third requirement is you would obviously have to have a job in that field. If you're going to be a journeyman welder, you've got to be working as a welder here to get those on-the-job training hours. Now, so imagine my delight, and I love the apprenticeship program. This is my favorite program. When someone comes into my office, and I don't care if they're 18 years old or 60 years old, if they say, Brian, I want to be an apprentice, that's what excites me, because they can see at the end of that commitment, they're going to have skills that they didn't have before, there's going to be an employment opportunity, and they're going to get a really nice certificate from the Office of Apprenticeship. So, going back a few years ago, we started with just 4 apprenticeships. We started very small. We had 4 apprenticeships and 4 guys, just to see how it would go. And obviously it's grown to 26. We're looking at some opportunities. We want to expand our number from 26 to even more. So that affords our population more opportunities to walk out as a journeyman. And then it gives us the opportunity, reentry folks, to work with employers like yourselves to try to match up these skills and these folks with employment opportunities that you've got. So if you haven't reached out to me, please do so today. Another stop on your tour today will be down in my office, so I can show you where all the apprenticeship testing, all the curriculum takes place. But I want to change gears just for a second. Also in my office, we do also where all the reentry stuff happens. So I'm working with these men to make sure that they've got professional cover letters and resumes, and they've got references that are in place. We practice interviewing over and over, how to answer the question of, hey, why do you have this felony? What happened? Why is there a gap in your employment history? So we talked about all that. Anything that's job related. And I know this lady earlier talked about retail. When a guy comes into my office and they're starting to apply for jobs, I don't short them. They can apply for a job anywhere they want, and I will help them with that application. I'll help them with the interview process. I want them to sell themselves in the interview. So I'm not saying they have to go just manufacturing. They can apply any job they want. And that's what I'm here for. I'm not to tell them what they can and can't apply for. So we're going to do everything we can. I guess I'll just kind of cut it short to see if anybody have questions, because I want to talk to you more one-on-one when you come down to my office, and we can meet and talk about apprenticeships and re-entry and things like that. Anybody have any questions about apprenticeships or Iowa workforce? Quiet crowd. The governor's gone. You can speak up now.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. By the way, the governor and Ryan already committed to my team about 30 minutes ago, so you're going to have to pick some new members of your team. But thank you very much. Next, I'd like to have Dan Clark, who is our Deputy Director of Iowa Prison Industries, come up and present. No one's clapping for you at all.
No. Well, first of all, happy birthday to Brian. Unlikely I'll be here next year because, as a rule, I don't travel north of Highway 30 during the winter. But my boss said I had to be here today, so happy birthday. So I just want to tell you a little bit about Iowa Prison Industries. You know us because we're the folks that make license plates, right? So including the ever-popular blackout plates, which have been in short supply. So you slip me $20 during the tour and I'll get you moved up. Actually, our manager for Anamosa is here somewhere, Al Ryder. So Al was telling me that we're caught up and he and his team there have produced 200,000 blackout plates. Just amazing. So Al and also our lean training specialist, Steve Forbes, is here. Steve. So two of our very dedicated and talented staff within the Prison Industries program. We really like working at IPI because we are helping men and women get ready to get out, and it's a very great feeling to be making products, but also to be outside making citizens. So happy to have a chance just to share that with you today. We're work training, so a big part of the training, as Brian mentioned, is our apprenticeship program. So to be an apprentice, you have to have both the study part and the paid work part. So many of the men and women that are in the apprentice programs are by necessity working in the IPI program. And if you go out on the tour today, you'll see apprentice welders and painters and others out there. Part of the other training that we provide is now the institutions are training men and women with OSHA 10. So now qualified as a department through our safety officer to provide OSHA 10 training. So when men and women leave this institution, we had to have a OSHA 10 card, and no matter what field they're going into, that's a valuable credential. Blair mentioned how important it is for someone that's getting out to have credentials. It helps to reduce the stress on the employer's part about, they don't really know what happens inside a prison, what do people do with their time. So the more credentials that we can help provide, the easier it's going to be for both the returning citizen and the potential employer. And then also, if you go on the tour, and I hope you do take that opportunity, you'll see our lean manufacturing system. This is something that Steve has developed working closely with Pell Manufacturing and Rockwell Collins and others. So we try to prepare men and women that are in the program for what employers want, and we certainly see as we talk to employers that almost all of them have some kind of continuous improvement program. They have some kind of 5S or workplace organization programs and so on. So that's part of the training that the department and IPI are providing to men and women. So today I just wanted to tell you a little bit about a program that allows men and women to work for private companies, because we have a number of employers here. So we hope that you'll consider hiring returning citizens after release. But even while incarcerated, there's a program that you'll see called the PI program, the Prison Industry Enhancement Program. It allows men and women to work for companies that have been unable to hire enough civilians. And in Northwest Iowa, that's pretty much everybody, right? So we have, as the governor mentioned, I think 5 or 6 partner companies here, and they do everything from work on promotional products to at an egg farm, to co-ops, to work that you'll see out there, manufacturing operations outside. So people in this program travel outside to your company or subcontract inside in our facilities. They can work 24/7. They can do almost any job that you can imagine. So it's a great program for those people that it's going to work, especially if you're close to a facility. In this program, the folks in the program are paid civilian wages. So it's very helpful to men and women that are incarcerated, because as a rule, they owe a lot of money. If you take our population of 8,500 men and women that are in state prison, as a group, they owe more than $100 million in restitution. So you can imagine the lodestone that hanging around your neck if you get out owing $150,000 or whatever it is. If they work in the PI program, they're allowed to keep just 20% of what they make, but the other 80% is used to pay taxes, and up to 50 of that is going to restitution. So we have people that literally have paid $200,000 of the restitution while working in this program. Last fiscal year, people in the PI program paid $4 million in restitution, taxes, child support, and other obligations. So it's what we call a win-win-win program for the employer. If you're needing employees and you're able to work with men and women that are still incarcerated, then it allows you to fill out your workforce. For the folks that are in the program, as I mentioned, they can pay off a lot of the restitution and still even just keeping 20% of the gross wage. You still make way more than they would working in the laundry or in any of the regular traditional jobs that are at the institution. And then for the state, us as citizens, as I mentioned, they're paying back restitution. They paid $1.5 million to the state to help defray the cost of their own incarceration. So it's really what we call a win-win-win program. So if you go on the tour today, then Keith is here and Sean or somewhere. So they'll be able to walk you through and help you talk to some of the guys that are in the program. We encourage you to ask any questions you might have. So I'll just finish with a little story about if you're wondering if men or women would want to work in this program for you. A couple of years ago, we had a large egg farm contact us, and they they said, geez, you know, we really need help. We got over 1.5 million birds, and if we don't get more people, we're going to have to reduce our flock, which means we're going to buy less grain from Iowa farmers, and we're going to have to lay off production managers and others. We really need 5 people to work at our egg farm. So, Warden, I think you were with me, but the institution staff, we went there to see, okay, what is this job? So we went, we had to put on a Tyvek suit, little booties, and then we go out into the hen house with 100,000 and another hen house with 200,000 layers in there. So we said, okay, what's the job? Well, you walk 900 feet down, and there's birds on both sides of you, and you get covered with, I wrote it down here, chicken excrement and feathers. It smells, as you can imagine. And your basic job is to either nudge a little egg that got stuck in a conveyor or pull out dead birds. Okay? So that's the job, 10 hours a day. And although the genetics of agriculture are amazing, these birds are stupid. They lay eggs on Christmas Day, on Thanksgiving Day, Saturdays and Sundays, so it's a 7-day week. So it's quite a job. And so we came back and we thumbtacked up, now wanting 5 people for this job. And oh, by the way, it's an hour 15 minutes there, hour 15 minutes back. You don't get paid for that. So we had 50 people apply for that job. So that just kind of tells you that the program is super popular with men and women that are incarcerated. Whether they're working here, like you'll see on the tour, or they're working outside at people's place of business, you know, they're making a civilian wage, they're working in what is a, quote, normal environment. They're away from the institution life. They're able to pay down their obligations. And, you know, they see the light at the end of the tunnel, especially here at this release facility. You know, almost all of them are getting out in a reasonably short amount of time. So they're thinking about, you know, what training or what position do I need to have so that when I get out, I can talk to a potential employer. So anyway, that's the Prison Industries or PI program. And I hope again that you have a chance to go out there. So I think we have a couple minutes if you have any questions, or I'll be out there during the tour. Yes. So the question was, how many people have been employed by the company that hired them while incarcerated? The answer is not that many, because if you're here in Rockwell City, for example, most of the people that are in this institution are not from Northwest Iowa. So good job, Northwest Iowa. We don't have a lot of people incarcerated from here. But like the story that you mentioned, most people go back to where they're convicted. We do have companies that have had as many as 8 to 10 released folks come back to work for them, including one of them became their plant manager. So I will say, normally when we start talking to a company, that's the first question we get is, when they get out, can I hire them? And the answer is absolutely yes. But the other answer is, most likely they're from Polk County, or Council Bluffs, or Waterloo area. So it happens, but not as much as we wish. Okay, so I'll be on the tour along with Steve Forbes and Al Ryder and Sean and Maggie will be leading the tour. So hope you have a chance to go out there. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, Dan, for all that you do. As you can tell, it's got a little louder in here, but now at least our teeth aren't chattering. So thank you, Warden Johnson, for getting the heat back on for us. So a few housekeeping things and then a few wrap-up things. So what we're going to do after the wrap-up, we're going to take a 5-minute break. The bathrooms are in the back, and if there happens to be a line for the women's bathroom, there'll be staff to escort you to another bathroom. There's still more food, so if you want more food and want a bite while we're waiting, please go ahead. You guys are going to be, those that are doing the tour, you guys are going to be split up into 3 groups, and we'll kind of have you over here. You want them to kind of, or it doesn't matter. Okay, Cord will figure all that out. You'll be in 3 groups to do the tour. So that will be after the 5-minute break. So in terms of wrap up, I have to tell you this has been a great morning. And I hope that you all feel the same. I think the presentations and the panelists really drive home the importance of this work and hiring people, hiring returning citizens and the benefits of that. I have a lot of thanks to say. I want to thank, of course, Iowa Department of Corrections, Warden Johnson and his staff, and for all that they do. You guys do great work. I'd like to thank Cord Overton, who's my comms logistics guru over there. He's all bashful, you can tell. Iowa Workforce Development, Ryan West, who's looking at his shoes for some reason. Must step in gum, I don't know. And of course, Director Townsend, who couldn't be here, and the governor for her support. It takes a village in terms of making these types of things happen. So I appreciate everyone's effort. I also want to, during the tour, I want to point out two people that you want to maybe hook yourself with is Deputy Director Bill Sperslagi and Deputy Director of Community-Based Corrections, Sally Kramer. They'll be on they're waving, and they are also very instrumental to our success and part of our administration. And lastly, I want to acknowledge Amanda Milligan, the Director of the 2nd District. You heard from Diane today about the issue with parole and placement. Amanda played a big role in that, and the district directors are part of our system, community-based corrections, and I want to give a shout out for Amanda and your leadership and what you've done to help resolve that issue. It's great having partners like community-based corrections, because we can't do it alone, so thank you, Amanda. And to all of you, thanks for being here. I know we all have very busy schedules. This is really, like I said in the very beginning, this is really a community effort. If we want to create those pathways to successful reentry, it's going to take all of us, not just one of us. So I thank you all for being here today, and we'll take a short 5-minute break. So thank you.
Yeah, we'll see you. Good seeing you. I'm heading out. A little late, but good to see you. Spend the whole morning out there, early morning. Oh, hello again. Hello again. Twice in a week.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, this fills in the blanks a little bit, from our pizza.
Gives it to you a full picture, exactly.
Yeah. From our
I'm going to try to get out of here.
because we really focused on the mobility issue with having Director Spiegel on there. That was awesome.
Right.
Yeah. That's,
See you all later.